Okay, so we're now ready to begin, and as you've been notified, it's now recording. So there's no one else online, but I have it on reliable authority that at least one person looked at the recording last week. And for those of you who are looking at the recording, after extensive testing, we have figured out the sound issue, and it should now be reasonable and not flitting back and forth in a terrible way. Because it was not good. So this course is on Teshuva and criminal justice. And last week, we kind of figured out this notion that Teshuva, well, let me go back to the summaries here. What we figured out was that Teshuva is a fact of life, and it is part of the creation of the world. That of the things that were created before the world began, Teshuva is one of them. So, you know, things like Teshuva and the Garden of Eden and heaven and hell, and there's more books that's back there. So there are.
Okay.
Yep. And so Teshuva is part of the natural world. It's part of society. And the second thing that we noticed is that Teshuva has this notion of return. And we talked about return being necessary, and we talked about what are you returning to? And we talked about the notion of perhaps it's a return to an ideal version of yourself. Maimonides adds that Teshuva is so important because if you do not have the possibility for change, what's the point of living? Right? If you don't have the possibility of change, there is no free will, right? And we talked a little bit about how in psychology, especially in psychodynamic psychology, that's Freud's school, is you can change your nature, you can change who you are. And to give the smallest example, if you decide to yourself, I'm going to stop swearing, and every time you swear, you say, oh, and then just once you're going to catch yourself, and you didn't swear, right? And now you're hyper attentive to it. If you flash forward a year or two, the habit is gone, right? You have changed who you are. You're now a non-swearing person, right? So it's possible. So Teshuva is bigger than just I feel badly. And we also talked about the notion of Teshuva is about the person who's making Teshuva. It's not about the person who is receiving the Teshuva, right? It's really about me, right? And I gave the example of if I didn't show up to perform a wedding, and okay, nothing I do is going to fix things for the mother of the bride, but I might be able to fix our relationship. So that's what brought us up to here. Okay. So let's look a little bit of the review here. So that was my version. Here's Micah's Yitzhak's version. So in the previous sources, we explored Teshuva as something built into the fabric of the world. However, it doesn't take place internally, or not only internally and between individual God. The core idea is that we should emulate God. Given the imperative of emulating God's, imitating God's ways, today we're going to look at what type of responsibility, if any, we have to those who are on the path of Teshuva. So what might it mean to emulate God when it comes to Teshuva? And should Teshuva always be accepted? Are there situations where Teshuva should not be granted? Right? Can I reject what you're going to say? Okay. So in the margin here it says, as the opening verse in the Parshat Kedoshim, which is, by the way, was last week's Parsha, Kedoshim. Right? Kedoshim Tihiyu, or is that this week? What was last week's Parsha?
Kedoshim.
It was Kedoshim? Good. So perfectly on time, right? You should be holy, for I'm holy. Deber b'nei et el koladat b'nei Yisrael, v'amarta Elohim, Kedoshim to you, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohim. You should be holy, right? So the sources make a connection between the imperative to imitate God and how we should approach granting tshuva to those who've wronged us, right? So let's look at this opening section from the Talmud, Abba Shaul. We're on page big number 8 at the bottom, page 2 on the the little page, So the big numbers, we're on page number 8. You can see the big, huge 8. Yeah, see the big, huge 8 right here at the bottom here. Okay, big numbers.
Page 2, it says source 1 also,
That's right.
but we want.
That's going to happen a lot of times.
Page 8.
Page 8.
got it,
Okay,
got it.
page 8, source number 1, and we're going to pick on Arlene.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you want me to read what it says, Talmud, Bavli Shabbat?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
yeah, I did.
okay. Abba Shaul says, I will adorn God in Exodus chapter 15, verse 2. Be similar to God. Just as God is compassionate and merciful, so too should you be compassionate and merciful.
Okay.
Sounds like something in Shabbat morning prayers.
Oh my goodness, yes. This sounds like something from our daily prayers. Yes. Yeah, we have that as a study text, okay? And it's true, right? How should you, I know, how can you be like God, right? So just as God is compassionate, you too should be compassionate. So Abba Shaul teaches us that, let's see here. Abba Shaul, no, that's not it. Hang on. Trying to figure out, there's a way to oh, there we go.
Darn technology.
Yeah, I know. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so walking in God's path means emulating God's characteristics. Okay, so compassion and mercy, just as God does. So now we're on page number 8. Page number 9, sorry. So let's ask these questions. How does this imperative to be compassionate and merciful relate to accepting someone's tshuva, right? What does it mean? How is compassionate and merciful relevant to that question of tshuva?
So I guess you're supposed to, so if God would be compassionate and merciful when someone returns
Mhm.
or atones,
Mhm.
then this is saying that you ought to
Yeah.
do the same. You
Right.
did mention earlier that there might be circumstances when
Right,
that
I mean,
would not
there might
apply.
be, right, okay,
But it's basically saying, this is how, I guess maybe people, or maybe I tend to think more about acting compassionately and what I do for someone during during the course of a day. But it's not always so easy to think about that if someone is apologizing to you, for example.
right,
It can be difficult to be compassionate there.
right. So let me give the example. The rabbi did not show up at your daughter's wedding. This has never happened. And the rabbi figures out what the rabbi's problems are and feels absolutely terrible. And has worked on becoming a better person, has bought an iPhone and now puts reminders in there. And makes sure that his wife uses track my phone, find my iPhone to make sure he's in the right place where he ought to be. And he's really taking care of making sure that never, ever happens again. Now the rabbi comes to you and says, I'm so sorry. I've made tshuva. Will you accept my tshuva? Right? Look, do you want to have compassion on this guy who absolutely destroyed and ruined your daughter's day? Is that going to be hard to have some compassion for this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's like.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Sandy, you're giving me a look like.
What, because to me, I'd have to know more of the story. Why was he late? Because my daughter, she'll get married eventually. I mean, that's going to happen.
Mhm.
but, before I could get angry, I would have to find out some more. You
Okay,
know, maybe, he's had hearing loss and didn't hear his alarm go off. I don't know.
okay. So that goes right into question number 2, which is, should there be limits to compassion and mercy? And if so, when? Sandy, so that's what you're saying is, well, I don't really believe it's Teshuva. I mean, I don't like the situation. So what other limits do we have to, when should we hold back on being merciful?
Well, suppose, God forbid, someone murdered someone close to you. I mean, you could see those things happening, in the news, and people who maybe committed a murder, perhaps they do feel a lot of guilt and,
Mhm.
whatever their circumstances were, maybe, they were intoxicated.
Right,
And, yes, it's true, but on the flip side is, it would be pretty hard to find compassion if a drunk driver murdered,
right, Right,
whoever's
right.
close to you, family member,
Right.
friends.
Or
Yeah.
if you witnessed it, what if you
Yeah.
witnessed it? How could you forget?
So,
So
yeah,
quick.
so I gave the example from the news of this fellow who had murdered his cousins when he was high and desperate for drug money. And that was 20 years ago. That was in 2005, 2006, almost 20 years ago. And since then, he's been remorseful. He's been a model prisoner. He has created groups, and he has worked in the prison barber shop, and all of the guards go to him to have their hair cut, and it's true. And when his day to be executed came up, over 70, I think, of these former prison guards and current prison guards wrote to the governor saying, you have to be compassionate, right? It says, if we call this a system of corrections, the correction system, he's been corrected. It would insult the entire concept of corrections to execute him, right? But his family says, well, our loved ones had no justice, and their justice is seeing this guy die. So they couldn't forgive. Now, you might make the argument that maybe they should have tshuva, right? But that could be a situation. They were not feeling the mercy. Okay, so here is one of my favorite passages in the Talmud, and so I'll read the Hebrew if Sandy, you want to read the English, okay?
I'll be dealing.
Okay, well, I mean, you can read the Hebrew if you like.
That's fine.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Hanahu birone tahavu bishavavute de Rabbi Meir. Behavo ka mitza'aru le tuva. Okay, first sentence.
There were hooligans in Rabbi Meir's neighborhood who caused him a great deal of anguish.
Yeah, let's hear about that. Havaka ba'e Rabbi Meir rachamei ilavaihu ki heche de le mutu.
Rabbi Meir prayed for God to have mercy on him, that they should die.
Okay, this is mercy, right? God should have mercy. God, I want you to have mercy. Show mercy on me by killing those people. Now, what do you think about that, by the way? Just stop right there. What do we think about that?
Well, that's a little one-sided, isn't it? Have mercy on me, get rid of what's bothering me.
Yes. So
People think,
so, okay,
it's
so
bothering me, get rid of it.
not usually what we think of about God being merciful and kind, right? And to the children of Barzillai who did this. Oh wait, Barzillai or Barzini? I forget which it is. For those of you getting the reference? Okay, Barzillai were King David's enemies. Barzini was the family who in The Godfather. Okay. 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 Amra le Bruria devetehu. My data mishum dichtiv yitamu hataim mi kativ hotim. Hataim kativ. Okay.
Beruya, Rabbi Meir's wife, said to him, "What were you thinking? If you base yourself on the verse, let sins cease from the land, Psalms 104-35, is it written, let sinners cease?"
Keep going one more.
Okay, let sins cease, it is written.
Aha, right?
Let
Hey,
sins
guys,
cease.
it doesn't say, it says, let sins cease from the land, right? It doesn't say let sinners cease. In other words, let the activity of sin no longer happen. It doesn't say kill off the people who are sinning, right?
Is that their second chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think it's like, you know, in my ideal society, there should be no crime happening. There's there are two ways I can make this happen, right? Number one, kill all the criminals. Then there'll be no crime.
There'll be no politicians
Be no
either.
people either.
Number two,
Politicians would be gone.
I can convince everyone to no longer commit crime. Then there's also no criminals. They haven't been killed off. They just cease to have that job function. They're all retired criminals. They're in politics, if you will.
Well,
Okay.
right.
Okay, right? So, moreover, she says.
Moreover.
Oh, sorry.
Wait,
Hataim.
wait.
Okay, let me tell. Okay, va'od. Shefel seifa dikra. Go to the end of the verse. Rashaim od enam. Kevan diyitamu hataim or rashaim od enam. Ela be'irach me ilavahu. Delak duru b'tshuva. Rashaim od enam. Ba'arachame ilaviyahu. Nahadara b'tshuva. Okay.
Moreover, go to the end of the verse where it says, and the wicked will be no more. If, as you suggest, sins shall cease, refers to the demise of the evildoers. Excuse me. How is it possible that the wicked will be no more? Rather, pray for God to have mercy on them, that they should repent, and then the wicked will be no more.
Ba'arachme ilavahu v'hadaru b'tshuva.
Rabbi Meir prayed for God to have mercy on them, and they did tshuva.
Okay. What do you think of this story?
Tough guy.
Yeah, but you know what? Why were these kids harassing him?
Because he was bald.
Oh, but they don't say that.
Maybe it was Rabbi Akiva was bald. I don't know. Rabbi Akiva also got harassed. So they were bored. I don't know.
Well, I think they lacked education, you know, just because.
Yeah.
Wearing a long black coat and have.
Yeah,
feathers doesn't
yeah.
mean that you're-
Yeah, I understand. So, yeah, Mel.
Yeah, there was on TV, there was a piece on a rabbi and a skinhead or neo-Nazi.
Mhm.
And the rabbi got together with the neo-Nazi. They became friends
Mhm.
and the guy is no longer a neo-Nazi, he's reformed. I guess you would say has Teshuva.
Mhm.
And so that's a good example of
Yeah.
what the rabbi's wife is saying. You know, get rid of the sin, not the sinner.
Yeah, and I love this verse. Yitamu hata'im min haaretz. You know, sins will be stamped out of the earth. Yitamu hata'im min haaretz. Hata'im min haaretz. U'reshaim od yenam. And evil people there will no longer be. No. Barchi nafshi. Hallelujah. You know, bless myself. Hallelujah. Right? It ends hallelujah. Right. So, there you go. Okay. How would you describe Uriah's criticism of Rabbi Meir, and do you agree with it?
She sounds like a wise woman.
Okay.
He married well.
You can take both sides of the argument. I mean, there's a great expression of, you really did believe in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, there'd be a lot of blind, toothless people walking around.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when it happens to you, it's like, kill the bastard.
Ah.
So. It's also, it's also contextual.
Mhm.
I know when the American military liberated Dachau, and the Brits did the same thing at Bergen-Belsen. They separated the Wehrmacht from the SS, put the SS guards against the wall and shot them. Was it a war crime? Probably, but hey, they did the world a favor.
Yeah, yeah,
Because even if those guards repented,
mhm.
it was still the scum of the earth.
Ah,
At some
So-
point, you have to just draw the line and say, hey, they have no right to live anymore.
Okay. Not everyone will agree, but that's.
Oh, I
okay.
know.
So,
Sorry.
but do you agree with her here? Like, I mean, according to her, we had a test case last week where it was this woman who's been accepted. She's the foremost scholar. She's done amazing things. Yeah, she murdered someone and she did her time. But look at her now. Don't look at what she did before, right? Are there times, and we talk, you're helping your mercy to overcome your sense of vengeance, right? God is loving and kind and forgiving. But the rest of the verse, which we ignore, is, and vengeance, oh yeah. Second, third, fourth even the fourth generation, ow, you're it. But we don't quote that bit because we don't like it, right? We just like, Adonai, we like the happy bits, the vengeance bit.
Didn't he force the Jews to walk 40 years and never see the
Ah.
land?
Yeah. Okay,
Don't
So-
pick off the big guy.
so beyond praying on their behalf, are there other, and notice how it's like not mercy for me, but mercy for them, right? Are there ways to express mercy on those who are acting inappropriately other than praying?
Well, depending, I mean, you were talking about the corrections and the person in the prison who learned other skills and thought about what he had done. And, to your point about what you said about corrections
Mhm.
and, is this person had an opportunity
Mhm.
because they were, I guess, removed from society. And in that example, not everybody's going to do what this person does either.
Mhm.
So that's another issue, but this person that you gave an example of, did some very serious thinking or tshuva to turn around his life. But you can't take away what he already did either.
Mhm.
So, the person, then it's, okay, how do you treat this person when they re-enter society and, what opportunities does that person have?
Right, how do you treat someone when they re-enter society? That's a great question. So have you been to the bread aisle lately?
What?
In the supermarket? Have you been to the bread aisle,
Bread.
okay? What is the brand that only appeared on the market about 5 years ago and now is like taking over half of the bread display?
Dave's.
Dave's,
About
right,
Dave's.
Dave's Killer Bread.
Mhm.
Why is it called Dave's Killer Bread?
It's loaded
Uh-oh,
with.
did Dave do something that we did before he became a bread maker?
Yes, I don't know what Dave did.
Yeah.
He's talking about his killer guitar skills, of course, but Dave is an ex-con.
Oh, really?
It says it right on the package. Do you not read?
Package.
Look, are you never bored and you read the packages?
I'm in a hurry. I'm in a hurry.
There's a whole novel on Dave's bread. Dave's,
Have to look
there's
this
a
up.
novel, Dave's bread,
Wow.
and he was an ex-con and went out and no one would give him a job. Maybe he found a job. So now he operates bakeries and he prioritizes giving jobs to ex-cons, because you know,
Oh, okay.
you may have been corrected, but nobody wants to hire you. The
Yeah.
only thing
Yep.
worse, as Mark said, is a dishonorable discharge. That's even worse than being an ex-con. So yeah, right. So okay, you could prioritize giving people second chances. At situations where mercy is unwarranted, we've talked about that. Yeah, okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the relationship between mercy and tshuva. And have to like share the screen thing. Where's share the screen? Oh, it's right there. That's easy. So Mark, why don't you read for us? Okay, you're in middle page, source number 3. Tanu Rabbanan le'olam tehei ma'ol doche v'yamin mikarevet, right?
Something, someone?
The sages say.
Okay. The sages taught, always have the left hand push sinners away and the right hand draw them close.
Okay, left hand, by the way, is your weak hand, right handed. So push away with your weaker hand, bring them closer with your stronger hand, right? Push and pull, right? In confronting someone behaving inappropriately, we may feel conflicting tendency. Part of us wants to bring the person closer, and other parts of us may want to push them away. Sages say, okay, feel the tension, but the primary energy should be on pulling them towards us. Okay, you have just smashed my mother's china, and I'm looking at you, my child, whom I love, and come here, we're gonna have a hug, and we're gonna talk about, controlling our bodies, okay? Does that relate to Bruria and Meir, this pushing away and pulling back? Yeah, that's, it's like you gotta push and pull, right? Okay. Have you ever felt this tension about wanting to bring someone close while simultaneously wanting to push them away? Anyone ever have that feeling? Yeah. So what did you do? Aha, okay.
Go with your stronger hand.
Any of you just push away? Okay, you can all close your, it's recorded here. I'm assuming some of you push people away and they're still away. And some people you brought in close and now you're thinking, wait a minute, I do have to reach out to someone. Is there anyone I've written out of my life that maybe I should pull back a little? And maybe not, because there are appropriate times.
It's complicated.
Okay, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
That was the answer that got the presidents of Penn and Harvard fired. It's complicated.
Oh, well,
Okay. How might it relate to punishing someone who committed a crime? The sense of pushing and pulling. Do we do more pushing or more pulling when we punish people in our correction system?
Pushing.
We do a lot of pushing. Maybe we'll push you to the ground and step on you for a little bit. Do we do any pulling? Do we set people up for success?
No.
Doesn't seem to be.
Okay, look, Adam and Eve. Right? Adam and Eve, the first sinners in the world. They wrecked it for everyone. What does God do for Adam and Eve? Do you remember?
Exiles them.
Exiles them, sure, but what else?
Well, the man had to work,
Right? He gets a job.
right?
Uh-huh.
And the woman has to have children.
And she also, right. Right. So in other words, and what else does God give them? Parting gift?
Death.
No.
No.
Oh, I mean, they can't live forever.
Parting gift. God gives. What's the very first gift that God ever gave to human beings?
Life.
Oh. Now, if I was mean, I would say, oh, I'm not gonna tell you, now you have to go look it up, but I'm gonna tell you. And God made for them
Close.
clothing out of skin and clothed them, right? God became a seamster and started actually, and God self, needle and thread, thimble, big thimble, made them clothing, right? So you've just brought sin into the world, and your reward is, okay, I'm gonna set you up with a job, and I'm gonna set you up with some responsibility, and oh, here's a nice set of clothing, right? God sent them off to college. Okay. When you get out of prison, if we want to be like God, when you get out of prison, we shouldn't just set you up with a parole officer. We should set you up with a job, because the reason that you probably stole in the first place is you didn't have one. And if we want to help you keep your nose clean, figuratively and literally, it would help if we actually set you up with some basic employment.
There was an article in the Inquirer this week.
Yeah.
About recidivism. Did you read it?
I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the same one. There was
There's a
something
group,
about,
a STAR it's called, it's an acronym for something, where they teach people who are going back into society from prison what they're going to need. They help provide them with ID, because many people who are imprisoned don't have social
Yeah,
security
there
cards
was
or
that
birth
one.
certificates, and they need this in order to get a place to live. And it went into recidivism.
I
Yeah.
think that's the word. yeah.
2/3 of the people that are released from prison wind up 3 years later back in prison.
For
or
sure,
committing
yeah, because
crime.
they don't know any
Because they
other
don't know
way,
any
and they
other
don't
way.
have,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
like
when's the
going
last
back
time-
in the world, but there's
Right,
nothing.
when's
to
the
help.
last time they cooked a meal? When's the last time they,
They
you know,
did
had to pay rent or did their own laundry or any of those things, right? They've been like in a nursing home for the criminally delinquent, okay? And now they're out. So I know, why would you coddle them by setting them up for success? They should really suffer. But that's what the prison was for. The suffering should be done. Pay back their debt to society, especially if they were wrongfully convicted. You know, it's anyways. So, yeah, okay, there's a little bit of a tochacha, a little bit of rebuke here to the American system of justice coming from Maimonides, but that's okay. Now, Ruth, from Maimonides, the Mishnah Torah, okay, number 4 here, okay? Asur la adam lihiyot achzari velo yitpayes ela yehe noach lirtzot bekasher lichos uvesha'ah shemevakesh mimeno hachoteh limchol mochel belishalem uvenefesh hafetza. So beginning on the bottom of page 10. Mhm.
It is forbidden for a person to be cruel and refuse to be appeased. Rather, one should be easily pacified, but hard to anger. When the person who wronged him asks for forgiveness, he should forgive him with a complete heart and a willing spirit.
Isn't that great? Like, yeah, like, have any of us like refused to accept? I don't accept your apology. I'm sorry. How does that feel? You're trying to repair a relationship, right? And that was very sweet. While I was on my trip, I said something unfortunate. Not that unfortunate, but I wasn't really thinking, and I sort of insulted my sister. And I thought, okay, all right, I need to apologize. And before I could even open my mouth, she said, apology accepted. So, okay. You know, it's very sweet of her. Like, no suspense there, right? Okay.
But sometimes there are apologies and there are apologies,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, how sincere they are.
That's what the act
Because I was thinking when you
That's
said,
what the act was. You don't kill someone, then apologize to his family.
Mm.
know?
Well, they do. They say, I'm sorry, they don't apologize for the, maybe they do apologize for the deed, but they'll say, I'm sorry, I brought all this distress on you at the
Yeah.
sentencing, because they,
Either
you want a
that-
lighter
It's either
sentence.
that or 5 minutes before.
Or-
Switch.
or with the apology, you can tell by the person's tone that it's
Right.
not sincere. I've had that, you know, they've said something in between the tone and the look on their face, but they're saying this because they know I want to hear it, but they don't mean it.
Okay,
And they
so,
did it again later, so there you go.
go.
so there's tshuva, and then there's mechila. Mechila is forgiveness, mochel, and tshuva is return or change, right? And so if I come to you and say, you know, I feel really bad about what happened, you know, a fair response is, yeah, I feel bad about it too, thank you. I'm glad that you feel bad about it. That's, you know, it's a start, okay? Maybe you might be a better human being. Maybe say, look, I've changed my ways. I never want to have that happen again. Okay, yeah, that is like, thank you. I will bear that in mind, right? It's not like absolution, right? You're not absolving someone. But you're saying, okay, I'm not gonna have this in the forefront of my mind anymore. Right? It's upsetting to, you know, when you are making tshuva, I can only speak for myself. What's most upsetting is the thought that someone else is upset. Right? It's upsetting to me that someone else is upset with me. And I want them to be not upset. Because I want them to be free of that and not be worrying about that. Right. So when a person who is wronged asks for forgiveness, he should forgive him with a complete heart and a willing spirit, right? Just, okay, I'm not gonna worry about this. This is hard, isn't it? This is hard.
Does the person who's asking for forgiveness, do they have to do something in addition to just asking? Do they have to make amends? If they robbed you, do they have to give money back to you?
Oh, that's the criminal justice system. That takes care of it. No, I mean, no, in Jewish law, there's restitution, all sort of thing. But I mean, I think it's easier to talk about things where there's no way to undo it, right? It's just, there's no, I can never show up in time for that wedding, okay? It's in the past.
Right.
Oh God, I'm gonna be so nervous next wedding I do. It's gonna, oh my God, it's just.
That's the
gonna be
only bad
terrible.
thing you ever do in your life.
I never did that. I never missed a wedding. Are you crazy? Oh my God, I would,
Well, that-
wow,
Right.
that would be, you'd have to, no, that, not even I could screw that up that badly. I mean, that would take a particular talent. Yeah, Ruth, yeah, uh-huh.
This idea of
Mhm.
Teshuva as a process of returning.
Yeah,
Could you explain that? Returning to what?
ah. Okay, let's talk about returning. So let me see where did we have that in sort of the first notion here?
Well, it's
hang
page
on.
7, take a step back.
Yeah, just
Number
hang on.
1, yeah,
Okay, so
page 7.
hang on, I wanna
Is that sort of like make America great again?
No. So here, so go back to page 6. Okay. like, last week, page 6. So. Actually, page 5. So Maimonides says, it should be understood that tshuva also belongs to this group of ideas, without which follows the Torah cannot be well grounded unless one believes in them, right? You have to believe in the possibility of tshuva. You have to believe in the possibility of return. For it's impossible for any person not to sin, either through ignorance or by professing an opinion or moral quality that's not preferable in truth, or else because he's overcome by desire and anger, right? If they and then the individual believed that the fracture could never be repaired, I could never return to our old relationship, right? We used to be on good terms, Ruth. I did something terrible. Our relationship is damaged. I want to return to the way things used to be between us. I want to be the person that you used to know and like, as opposed to the person now that is all hypothetical, right? We're gonna have to go for coffee after this. Just the damage from the examples and hypotheticals is just really hurting me. But right, I want to return to the way it was before. I want to return to the ideal. When I was born, I was pure. I was clean, I was good, I had to, and I've kind of, there's a path that I want to take in life, and I've fallen off the path. I want to return tshuva. I want to return to that ideal version of me that never existed.
The
Right?
ideal version of you that never existed.
Well, of course, it's impossible for me to be ideal, but that's what I'm returning. That's the goal, right? I want to.
How realistic is that, though?
Well,
Truly, how realistic?
okay, so what he says is, if he doesn't believe it'll be fixed, he's going to persist in the error and perhaps disobey even more. If he believes in tshuva, he can correct himself and return to a better and more complete state than the one he was in before he sinned. He can return to a better state than he was ever in before. Okay, that doesn't make sense, right?
No.
So, okay.
I guess I'm a big one.
And then, okay,
Not
so
believing
here we
in
go.
returning.
When Kennedy said, we will go to the moon, was it possible to go to the moon?
When you said it,
Yeah.
So,
No, it was impossible. Nobody believed they could get it done. But they aimed high. And they wanted to get to a place that they'd never been before, but was like an ideal, right? When he talked about a great
that's not
society.
returning, that's looking forward, though, right?
Okay, so hang on. So Maimonides is also familiar with Plato. Okay, Plato, as a philosopher, had this notion of Platonic forms. What's a Platonic form? Okay.
Like some kind of ideal?
Oh, it's an ideal. So, let me pause the share thing here for a moment. So, there's a great book by and a great documentary about. It was more of a movie. Temple Grandin. Do you know the name Temple Grandin?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Temple Grandin. I say Temple Grandin, and you think?
She has autism and I read a book
Animal
about
behavior.
the animals
Right.
and.
Kosher
supposedly-
slaughter. I mean, Temple Grandin is the guru on how to get animals to happily walk to their deaths using their behavior, right? They naturally walk in circles to make a curved path. You don't have to shove them, just put something on there lightly on the back and they'll just naturally go. And if you have ramps, because they don't like stairs, ramps, they like ramps. And if there's a hole, they'll be curious, they'll stick their head through to see what's going on. And okay, so, but Temple Grandin says when you look at a dog, you see a dog and you know it's a dog. My daughter does art and she draws dogs. Sometimes I'm not sure if they're a dog or a cat, because it's like, I'm not sure. But she tells me they're dogs and I believe her, right? So Temple Grandin, whenever she sees a object, she says, okay, I'm gonna go through my memory index of every single thing I've ever seen that has 4 legs and fur. And I'm gonna compare it by size and this, and what has more in common, and which ones are labeled dogs, and I'll decide, okay, this is a dog. It's not a horse, because it eats meat. And it's not a sheep, because it also eats meat, even though they're fur. And it's not a wolf, because wolves kind of have the pointy ears and this is the floppy, right? Okay. We don't have to deal with that. We have some ideal dog out there. Like this is this is the dog, and everything is just a poor reflection of the dog, the form, right? With me so far? There's an ideal. There is an ideal Ruth, and an ideal Mark, and an ideal Sandy, and an ideal Arlene, and an ideal Jack, and an ideal Milt, and an ideal Bob, and even an ideal Rabbi Cantor. And my job in life is to bring myself closer to that ideal. I want to return to that ideal, right? I've never been there.
Why do you say return though?
Because it's so much easier than going there. It's like the rabbi said, when a baby is brought into the world, an angel in the womb teaches them everything that they're gonna ever know. And then when they are born, gives them a slap and they forget everything. Because it's so much easier to remember something you used to know than it is to learn something new. So we were at our ideal before we entered the world. And now we're trying to return to it. It's a funny word, return. But you can return to places you've never been. I know the logic doesn't work that way, but it's like, you ever come to a place and you think that you've never been before, you think, oh my God, I'm home. This is it. This is the place. I've returned. You've never been there in your life.
Something feels comfortable and
It's
right.
like this is it. This is what I've been looking for all my life and I never knew it. It's a feeling of return. Okay? Don't get hung up on the phrase.
No.
Okay? Don't get too hung up. It's not totally literal, but it's better than saying, well, I'm going to repent. If I'm repenting from, the focus is on what I did. Return, the focus is on where I'm going. We chase after the messianic ideal. Is the Messiah ever going to come? No. But if we work to create a world that's worthy of the Messiah, that's a great goal. And it might actually lead to some wonderful, great stuff. Okay. Okay. Does that help like a tiny bit?
A tiny bit.
Okay. Back to our verse. Because we're only halfway through the Maimonides there. But this was so totally worth it. Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. Page 4, oh, sorry, page
10 or 11.
page 11, okay? And source at the top of the page, and it says, we got to the willing spirit, right? Va'afilu hitzer lo v'chata lo harbe lo yikum velo yitor. Even if he aggravated and wronged him severely, he should not seek revenge or bear a grudge. Every day you showed up and insulted me, every single day, but finally you decided it's enough. Okay, we're starting new, right? Aval. V'zehu darkam shel zera Yisrael libam v'libam hanachon. This is the path of the seed of Israel and their upright spirit. Aval ha'ov de chochavim arelei lev enan ken ela v'achratan ve'evrato shemara netzach. In contrast, the idolaters do not act in this manner. Rather, their wrath is held onto forever. That's what sets us Jews different. We let go of our wrath.
That's
Except for
hard to
Amalek.
do.
Except for Amalek. But,
That's hard to do sometimes.
oh my goodness, yes. So, medical science is going to tell you forgiving people is good for your health. Wrath and anger is bad for you. It takes a lot of energy. And when you forgive people, it's like, oh, it's a weight off my shoulder. I don't have to worry about it anymore. You can even forgive people without their knowing it, you know? Because who cares? Let them suffer feeling guilty. Me, I don't have to worry about it. I'm just next. Done and next. Yeah, Arlene.
Question. So sometimes I have
Word
trouble
fun.
with that word forgiveness, because if I think about someone said something to me that
Mhm,
was very
mhm, mhm.
offensive, and they're not gonna change their way, and they won't apologize, they think they're right.
Mhm.
And I really don't like that they said this thing.
Mhm.
And, eventually I can maybe think about why they did it,
Mhm.
or how they were, or
That person
something
hasn't
that,
made tshuva, have
that's
they?
not, no, and,
No.
and I know they're not going to, but then you're saying
But-
about releasing your own anger.
Yeah, but here,
And
this
that's
is,
what
but this is,
forgiveness
but
seems
this
to
is in the
be.
context of tshuva.
Okay,
Okay, we're talking about tshuva, right?
Okay.
Now, I'm not like, I was on a panel once. And there was a some kind of evangelical Christian. And there was a Unitarian Universalist. And there was me. And the question is about forgiveness. And the evangelical says, you have to forgive people. You have to forgive. Have to forgive. Even, even if they don't, you need to forgive everyone. And the Universalist Unitarian says, you got to forgive everyone. I mean, you got to forgive Hitler. You got to forgive everyone. And it comes to me. And I said, I don't need to forgive anyone. They need to make tshuva. They need to repent to me. Okay? So some years ago, I had a beautiful sukkah. It was the most glorious sukkah. It was a lighters, pre-made lighters as a company, metal frames. It was white fiberglass walls. To the walls were clear on the top so you could see out. There was a sliding door. To the thin walls had windows for ventilation. There were beautiful posters that were like permanently attached. And the back wall to the panels had a hand-painted mosaic of the Western Wall, the Kotel. This was the Cadillac Rolls Royce of Sukkahs. And we went on a trip and we came back and we were away for 3 weeks and people were staying in our house and some people the neighbors had the trees taken down and their truck was in our drive. Anyways, it's my daughter's birthday party. So I go into the garage and I look around and I think, a lot more room in here than there should be. And I look and I think, okay, there's the schach, there's the stuff for the top of the sukkah. And there's the four corner pillars. Where's the sukkah? Where are these 16 panels of 8 foot by 4 foot fiberglass steel encased? Two of the panels are only 2 feet wide. So I phoned up my father. I said, Dad, remember you were visiting like a few months ago? You didn't like move the sukkah anywhere, did you? Okay, my dad's 5'6" and he weighs like 140 pounds. No, he didn't move them down the basement. I said, okay, good. I file a police report. Okay. It took me years to transcend this. Okay. And I said, look, somewhere out there are those Ganavim who stole my sukkah. I don't know what kind of person you have to be to steal a sukkah from the rabbi's garage. If they're a non-Jew, it's anti-Semitic. If they're Jewish, it's even worse. Okay? And if I suddenly decide to forgive them, are they going around, driving the car saying, oh, I suddenly feel better. Oh my goodness, Rabbi Cantor must have forgiven me. They have no clue. My forgiving them has absolutely no effect on them whatsoever. But it has an effect on me. I can stop being irritated and just move on. Act of God, move on. Okay. Have I forgiven them? No, I've suppressed and forgotten. I haven't forgiven them. If I ever see them, oh my God, right? But I've decided not to prevaricate them. Okay. So yeah, forgiveness. But tshuva, when someone comes to you and says, if those guys came to me and says, Rabbi, we were different people back then, right? We were different people back then. It's like I saw a program or an article or something where he meets this guy and very nice. He was one of the weathermen, like the terrorists, the weathermen back in the day. But now he's just a nice greengrocer guy, He says, well, I was pretty stupid when I was younger. I'm smarter than that now. We don't do that anymore. Okay. Tshuva, right? But hanging on to grudges is bad for you. It really is. And refusing to forgive people when they have made a change is also bad, because it's frustrating for that other person who has made tshuva, who has changed their life. I've changed my life, and how can I ever earn your respect? Right? And it's like, Then the person's just being mean. Or not. So according to Maimonides, it is considered cruel to refuse to forgive someone who asks for forgiveness. He sees his willingness to forgive others as being a defining characteristic of the Jewish people, as described in the Torah, in contrast to their biblical foes who bore a grudge and refused to be appeased. Right? And remember, we've got some Ganav in our past, some thieves, right? Now, Jacob was not exactly nice to Esau for no good reason. Really. He was not nice to him. And the brothers were not nice to Joseph. And King David was a real piece of work. Okay?
Gee, they were human, huh?
Oh, no. And God said after the golden calf, I'm just going to wipe these people out off the face of the earth and start against you, Moses. And Moses says, God, you're going to look like a insert word that I'm not willing to say. You are kind and loving and forgiving. Wiping out the Israelites is not on brand. You will look foolish. Okay? God forgives. We should be like God. Okay. So, some questions here. Why do you think Maimonides places willingness to forgive on such a high pedestal?
Well, if we're talking about how somebody can sincerely change on their part, then you're in a relationship with that person and somebody's making a serious change, then you also need to perhaps change your thinking and be willing to forgive that person. It sounds like, both people are making some sort of effort and reflecting on their actions.
Okay. Yeah. Other thoughts? Why is this like so important?
Helps you become and return to that better person that you were.
Yeah.
I think it helps society as a whole.
Yeah.
If you can, otherwise, everybody's gonna have grudges against everybody. There's no cohesion, there's no trust within the society.
We are a camp. Everyone has to be in the camp. People are put outside of the camp for health and safety reasons, and then they get to return to the camp. But we're a camp, we're a family, we're a tribe. And if people have grudges within a family, it's terrible. Well, I was visiting my father and my mother, and they were talking about some of the disputes in the family, right? Big long dispute. My grandmother threw a engagement party for these cousins, for those people, an engagement party. And when the wedding came, they weren't invited. And you should not involve with those people. Well, you know why they weren't invited? It got lost in the mail.
Gee.
That's why the invitation didn't arrive. And it wasn't until a generation or two later where her brother, my great uncle, said to my parents, you should invite these people. And they were invited to my sister's bat mitzvah. Oh my God. They invited my parents to everything after. It was like, and my grandmother said, these are nice people. I don't know why I was so angry with them. Right. So, but yeah. If we all are going to live together, we need to be willing to forgive each other and work with each other. As an aside, looking at American politics today, there is a big problem because each side believes with their heart and their soul and their mind that the other side has no interest in leading the country, but is out to destroy it. I don't think that's true. I think both sides are trying to do their best for the country, and they've got really different strategies that are incompatible. If you try to do both strategies at the same time, it's going to be terrible. But if they could just kind of forgive each other and work together, that would be great. But it is so much easier to divide the camp and get the two sides to hate each other, because you want to rally everyone together, give them something common to hate. But then you know what you end up with? Two camps. And the Jewish people doesn't want to be divided into two camps. We want to be one camp. If you want to be one camp, you gotta be willing to forgive. So, in your own experience, is this realistic? What's the most challenging thing about the requirement to willingly forgive with a whole heart?
Tough because you're focused on whatever it is you don't like.
Mhm.
And it's hard to take your mind off that focus, even though it would make you, what you said a moment ago, feel physically better, leading to a physical effect on you. But
Yeah.
it's hard to get your mind out of a certain type of thinking to forgive somebody who's apologized to you.
We're just about to wrap.
Are we, oh, I'm
We
sorry.
are now.
Do
We
you
have-
worry,
we have-
do you worry then, do you worry then about the person repeating what they did? Do
Yeah.
you think, you're wanting to forgive, do you
Right.
think?
But-
How can I
but-
stop this
right,
from happening
Right,
again?
but
Yeah.
tshuva, again, tshuva has this precondition of, I've changed, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So,
That's
But
not
you have to
that's not
trust,
human
but you
nature.
have to trust that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so I think it comes back to, and here it is.
I believe
um,
trust but verify.
I think it comes back to love. Right? You all have children, yeah? More or less.
Well, sometimes more.
You all have parents, had parents, more or less.
Had to get here.
How to get
Yeah.
it, right?
They love you unconditionally. They love you when you do well. They love you when you do poorly. Unless you had a terrible experience, they have not cut you off. Right? That's how you forgive. You have to, I think, have love for your fellow human beings because they're all in the image of God. They're all trying to do the best with what they have available. And they may just have bad data going in, but you have to, I think it helps to love your neighbor as yourself. You gotta love yourself, love your neighbor, okay? So what does it mean to truly forgive someone? I'll let you wonder about that. So we talked about the principle that calls upon us to emulate God. God, just as God is forgiving, we too should be forgiving. Maimonides sees this as, what is a Jew? A Jew is a person who forgives. So challenges to take with you. What is most challenging about embodying mercy and a compassion to grant someone forgiveness? The fact that they did what they did. I mean, that's probably to me. How do these sources relate to how we view criminal justice, right? To what extent should we apply these guidelines to be merciful and compassionate after someone has been convicted? And we'll talk about that more next time. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.